over here. So I'll say a quick word of prayer, and then I'll share my screen, do a little bit of review, a little bit of new material.
You might want to mute all the mics there.
Yeah, thank you. That way we don't get any even if people are not saying anything with open mics, it can cause some technical problems. So I'm muting people. You can always chat, or you can unmute yourself if you need to jump in. But let me pray for us real quick. Heavenly Father, thank you for strength for this day to this point. We ask that this time would be helpful again, and help us, whether through the medium of Greek or otherwise, to be looking to your word and looking to your Son. And it's in his name that we pray. Amen. All right, let me share my screen here. So to review, we are dipping our toes now into the grammar of Greek. By all means, if you don't have the alphabet, the diphthongs, the breathing marks down, accent names is less important, but those other things, the letter sounds, the diphthong sounds, and the breathing mark sounds, by all means, keep reviewing those on your own time. And if you have questions about that, you can let me know. I'll try to be briefer with the lesson today, and then open the floor to questions a little bit sooner than I have been. Well, what we covered last week was the first part of the second declension. The first declension is a little bit more complicated, so a lot of times people start with the second declension to get the concepts down, and then once you have the concepts for the second declension, the first declension is kind of the same principle, but then adding on a few more sort of slight curveballs, nothing too crazy, and then later there'll be a third declension as well. Second declension singular is what we looked at last time. The endings are as, u, o, on, and eh. These get stuck onto a noun to, roughly speaking, show what that noun is doing in its clause. So, for example, if we said anthropos, we would be saying that a man is doing some verb. He's the subject of the verb. So like anthropos blepe, a man sees, and then whatever he sees, if it's a second declension, we would stick the on ending onto whatever that might be. A lot of times in the Greek textbooks, you get really sentences like anthropos blepe apostolos.
We're starting to go static here. Can't hear you. Go ahead and call, and let's see about a secondary source. Okay, can you shut your speaker off? Okay, try talking through this.
Testing. How's the sound?
Okay, are we getting sound, guys? Eddie, are we getting sound?
Have Steven say something again.
Testing.
Yes, it's lower, but I can hear it.
Do you need me to talk a little bit louder?
Try again, Steven. I think you're close.
Just drop a chat or something if you need louder or if there's some problem. Okay, so we're talking about the cases. Second declension, basically we're marking what a noun does. So the nominative, which is the os ending, is the subject of the verb. And then I was just giving an example, like anthropos, man is subject. Glepe, that'd be the verb sees, S-E-E-S. Apostolon would be an apostle as the direct object, which is the accusative. And backing up, genitive is basically your of case. So anthropo would be of a man. Dative anthropo, to or for a man. And then vocative anthrope, you're talking to a man and you're saying, man, whatever it is you're going to say to him. All those are rough approximations. There's a lot more details or special cases that you'll learn as you go along. But basically, subject tense, an ofness kind of thing, indirect object more or less, direct object, and then speaking right to the person or thing. So here we are with huios as a subject, a son as a subject, huiu of a son, huio to or for a son, huion, son as a direct object of some verb, huia, o son. This is just the same thing with anthropos. Okay, now, new material, the plural. In English, we pretty much just stick an S on things. Or, of course, we have fun irregular nouns like geese instead of gooses. But there's basically a designated, any plural suffix thing in English, which is an S. But in Greek, we have a whole new set of endings one for each case. So it's the same cases, although we'll talk about the vocative in a second. Nominative, oi, genitive on, dative ois, accusative us. So in the silly sentence I gave a minute ago, anthropos, that's man with a nominative ending, lepe sees, apostolon, that's apostle with accusative ending. If we wanted to pluralize all this, well, let's skip the blepe part because that's a verb. We haven't really touched those. But men see apostles. We would say anthropoi see apostolus. So you see how that works. We are using it's the same principle. We're sticking on the sending. So anthrope, and then whatever the ending is, oi, on, ois, us. Or with like huios, if the sons are doing something, it's to be huioi. Or if somebody's doing something to the sons in a direct object way, huius. If they're doing something to or for, huiois. If it's of the sons, huion. Now, vocative. In most situations, or in other words, for most nouns, the vocative is the same form as the nominative, and we just go by context. So whereas in the singular, for man, if we want to say man, we would say anthropa. But if it's the plural, men, we would say anthropoi. And it's just the context of the sentence or the situation or maybe the tone of our voice in some way that shows that it's the vocative case instead of the nominative. And that's going to be the situation for most nouns. Like when we get to the first declension, even in the singular, there's not a separate form for the vocative. We just use the nominative form and leave it to context. Here is another section from John. I don't really know why I keep grabbing things from John, but that's what's coming to mind. For example, sentences. So we're back to the beginning of the book. En auto, Zoe, Ain, Kai, Aid Zoe, Ain, Ka, Phos, Tone, Anthropone. In, you can hear that it's actually related to the word in English. It's close, right? N versus in. Auto. This roughly means him. And you can actually see a dative ending on it. That's because a lot of prepositions, including this one, have the object of the preposition in the dative case. But that's something we'll be learning, is that prepositions take the object of the preposition in a certain case. Often it's the dative, but sometimes it's something different.
So it's like into him.
Well, into or in.
Uh-huh.
There's another word, into.
Yeah.
So
what I meant was to separate it. Like you literally could say something like in to him was life.
well, kind of.
Yeah, close
But
but no pepperoni roll, right?
you don't need to like over translate it.
Uh,
It's just that when you have an object of a preposition, something like in the phrase in him is the object of the preposition because we've got a preposition to, and then we've got him as the to what, the to him.
cool.
So
Thanks.
the object of the preposition needs to be in a certain case.
Great. Thank you.
Yes. So in him, Zoe, life. So we could hear the English word zoology here. Nobody was thinking zoology when they first heard this because English had not come about yet. But as a useful way of remembering, there's lots of things like that where we can think of an English word that's similar. And we wouldn't want to say that they were thinking about that English word because English hadn't come along yet. But if it helps us remember. So zoology, zoo is like a place where there's a lot of living things. Anyway, Zoe means life. Now this is a first declension noun, so we're not going to consider in detail, but it is in the nominative case. It's the subject of the sentence. And then the verb here is was, ain. So life was in him, in Jesus, according to the context. Life was in him, and the life was the, it's like this was the, and this was the, that's a future lesson. Phos, light. This is a third declension noun, in case you're wondering. Of the, and then here finally we get to something we recognize. Saved it for the end. Anthropone, of men. Again, you don't have to like over translate because I said this is of the. We don't have to do like of men. You can just do of men. But what we're going to see is actually pretty straightforward here. What's going on here? The definite article, which is to say, I'm sorry, not this. This. So this, the hey, the ta, and the tone. Those are all the, or if we want to be fancy, we call it the definite article. The thing with the definite article is it matches the case, like the declension, all those kinds of things, of whatever noun it's going with. So this one goes with Zoe, which is first declension. So not to get too back into the details for the moment. It's not as complicated as maybe it might seem, but it's like this is a match, and then this is a match, and then this is a match. Now here's our familiar second declension, genitive plural, like we saw up here, own. So there's our genitive plural of men. Now in this case, it's of the men, and the takes on this form where it kind of matches the declension and the number of the noun that is going. But here we have a genitive plural. So the light of men, or of the men. Usually it's translated of men because it's kind of confusing in English to translate it of the men. It's kind of like John is like looking at the globe, and there's all those people, and Jesus is the light of those people. It's a little different way of looking at it, and often there's a mismatch. Not all the time, but often there's a mismatch between Greek and English and how we think about particularity and these kinds of things, how we use the article. But the main point for now is we have these plural endings, oi, on, ois, us. And again, I really recommend you memorize the names of these cases in this order. Noun, genitive, dative, accusative. Vocative, as I said, usually is the same as the nominative. So that one you can kind of have as like in the back of your mind. There could also be that. The main ones are these four: nominative, genitive, dative, accusative. If you remember that order, then you'll later be able to memorize sets of endings like oi, on, ois, us. And if you know the order, you can think through oi, on, ois, us, oi, on, ois, us. And then you can think about, well, the second of those, own, that must be genitive. Because genitive is the second in the list, noun, genitive, dative, accusative. So I know I'm rattling that off all fast because I've studied it before, and for you it may be new, so this might be a lot, but that's the idea.
Hey, Stephen.
Yes.
The one way I remember that own has the of bit, both an O and an of start with the letter O, and it never changed. I mean, that O structure shows up a lot. So anytime you see that little, I always think of a W, of course, that's not, it's an omega, but I just think of it as okay, well that's always of because it's starting with an O, so to speak. That's how my crazy little brain works.
Yeah, sure.
Just if it helps anybody.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. Any little tricks like that are helpful. But with that, I'll open the floor to any questions or further comments, tips, ideas.
At 14 minutes, I wonder if we could kind of kick into another verse, maybe in John, you know?
Yeah.
That'd be
I
kind
don't
of
want to
fun.
rush people that people are formulating any.
Yeah. I mean, what do you guys think out there? I mean, you could chip away at John 1:1 or, you know, some of the easier ones. I see Eddie tonight.
I am rolling, but I ain't very good at it, tell you the truth.
What was that? I didn't quite catch it.
I said I'm willing to try, but I'm not very good at it.
Oh, we're just sort of looking. Are you scrolling for something there, Stephen?
It's just Eddie. I could tell he was talking, but
Okay.
I had a hard time making out.
Hey, Stephen, how about bringing up that verse we just did and pronounce the third word from the end in Greek? I think it's life. It may not be.
If you can't hear this, he's asking you if you would pronounce the third word from the end, life.
I don't know if it's life or not. That one.
Okay. Os.
Os.
A phi omega sigma. The final sigma there, so It's got that special form for when it's the last letter of a word.
You know how I remember light is photo, photo. Kind of helps my little brain.
Mhm. Yeah, so with photosynthesis, with photography, when this word occurs in certain other cases, you'll actually see the letter tau crop up. So like the genitive of light would be photos.
Getting really close to photo there.
Right.
Yeah.
So we got all three declensions in this verse. Let's see. Maybe I can pull up another tab here. We can look at another verse or so. Wait a second.
I see the man cave.
Okay, so here's John chapter 1.
This will be fun. This is great.
So let's see. NRK is that N again for N. In beginning. So this would be another mismatch between Greek and English in terms of when we use the word the, when we use the definite article. In Greek, it's a lot more optional in general, I would say. A lot of times you really don't have to have it. So when you're translating back and forth between English, at this stage of your learning, the nuances are going to be a little hard to catch. I would say at this stage, just be prepared for the fact that sometimes where you think there's going to be a the in English, there's not going to be in Greek. And then conversely, sometimes you'll see a the in Greek when in English we wouldn't use one. So here we would say in the beginning. It would sound really weird and wrong to say in beginning. But in Greek, it's perfectly fine to say NRK. Ain was halagos. Now, does anyone want to take a stab? What case is, what case is this? Nominative, genitive, dative, accusative, vocative?
I gotta get your mic there, Eddie.
Nominative is
Yes, nominative is correct. So the ending of the word is going to show you. Also, for a future lesson, that way the future lesson will sound like review for you folks. The definite article also gives it away. So in this case, ha. You'll learn that ha is the nominative singular masculine definite article. So when there is an article, as I said, a lot of times there's not one where you might even expect one. But when there is one, you already know because of the match here. Anyway, the ending here, os. This part you know, os, nominative singular. So this is the subject, the word. Do we get the word logic from this? You got to be a little bit careful not to make the leap and take everything that the English word logic means and say that logos means that, because that's going the wrong direction in time. Which we don't want to be reading backwards in time. We want to go forwards in time. But word, and it is true that the Greek idea of word does have a lot more significance and meaning than our word for word. So the word was in the beginning. You can see just here in the first little bit of John, how there's so much more flexibility with the word order in Greek than there is in English. So you can communicate a lot of subtleties. You can have a lot of variety and sometimes playfulness even in how you arrange the words. Kais and halagos, the word as the subject, was. Pros is really hard to translate here, or it's hard to get into English. To be hyper literal, I suppose we might say something like to the God. But the idea is like in fellowship with, or closely, intimately related to. So in close fellowship with. Now this is accusative, theon, but it's not actually it's not the direct object of a verb. It's the object of a preposition. So pros is a preposition. Prepositions are connecting words, connecting in the sense of like with, to, in, from. And the thing that you are in or from or with, that's called the object of the preposition. And prepositions in Greek have their objects in different cases depending on what the preposition is or depending what the meaning is. So this is the object of pros. So the word was with, roughly speaking, with what? With God. And once again, and not for the last time, there's a mismatch between the usage of the article here.
Can I
So it's really
get a question in? I think you hit on something that I really like about Greek, and it was like, I mean, our translation says the word was with God and the word was God, but you literally brought out something that the word was in close fellowshipping with, closely relating in relationship with. Am I on the right track?
Yes.
Which I think is really neat because you just don't read that in English. Always like, okay, yeah, I can be with you. I'll toss you a ball, you toss me one. No. This is close fellowship, and this is one of those reasons why no one Greek will really bring a thing or two out. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, absolutely. There's other ways that this could have been worded, and it's worded in a very particular way to really highlight the intimacy of the fellowship
of the Father and the Son. Yeah,
yes,
cool. I love it.
And theos and God was the word. Again, the word order is kind of scrambled from our point of view. From their point of view, it's perfectly normal. In other words, and the word was God.
Is that interchangeable? Can you go either way?
You could, but there's kind of a subtlety here where there's a particular way this is phrased in Greek where it kind of works this way. But there's a rule, and this is kind of getting into more like intermediate or advanced Greek, but where you have a construction like this, we have what's called an anarthrous, which just means there is no article. But then you have a connecting verb, and then you have the subject. You're making this equation of something particular with something else. So this does not mean that the word was a God, like one of many, but that the word is what God is.
I think the Jehovah's Witnesses would try to say that.
Yeah, so knowing a little bit of Greek here, so there's a few ways we can come at this. One way is the kind of more advanced rule, something called Caldwell's rule. So it's a well-established Greek grammatical principle that I was just summarizing. We have an anarthrous noun, we have a connecting verb, and an articular noun here where we're making an equation. Now that's a mouthful. But what you can already grasp without having read up on Caldwell's rule is you've already seen in, what we've been going about 30 minutes, and we've seen how many times already in this 30 minutes there's this continual mismatch. Not literally continual, but this very frequent mismatch between where we use the article in English and where they use it in Greek. Sometimes we have it in English, but then they don't in Greek, like anarche in the beginning. Or we saw in verse 5, the light of men, where we don't use the article, the light of men. But then in Greek, it was phos, tone, anthropon. That's not verse 4, sorry. Taphos, tone, anthropon, the light of the men. So the point is, when the Jehovah's Witnesses will go to fast and say, look, there's no article, it means a God. The word was a God, one of many. Well, let's back up a few words. So the very beginning, anarche, is this like in one beginning of many? Well, that makes no sense. How can there be one beginning of many? At least in the context of what's being described here. So the way they handle the grammar on this is totally unfair.
When you do translate that, is it proper to say the word was God?
Yes.
Okay, so God functions like maybe in the English predicate nominative.
Yes, and with maybe in Greek a little bit more of a nuance where what we're saying is by wording it this way, and again we're dipping our toes into more like intermediate advanced Greek here, but that's okay. I think we can handle it. What we're getting at in wording it this way in Greek, we could have worded it other ways, is that every quality that makes God God is what Jesus has. With the general rule is when you have an article, you're putting an emphasis on like the particularity or the individuality of something. When you don't use the article, you're more talking about like those qualities which make the thing what it is, highlighting that aspect of things. So here, it's like John's kind of asking us, like, think about what it is that makes God God. He is eternal, he's omnipotent, he's omniscient, all these things. And whatever those things are that we think of, that's true of the Word, who he'll reveal later on is Jesus Christ.
So if I had 30 seconds to tell a Jehovah's Witnesses something from this verse that would point them the right direction, I probably would go through and say something like, and correct me at the end of this, in the beginning was the Word, speaking of Jesus, and the Word was intimately in fellowship with God, and the Word was God, not a God that possibly does not exist if you take the grammar correctly. Am I correct?
Yep.
All right, that's
cool. So we're 2/3 of the way to understanding the Trinity in this verse, because Jesus is God and he's in fellowship with God. How can both those things be true? Because God is one, but he's also three. Not in the same sense at the same time. That would just be craziness. But there's a sense in which God is one. There's a sense in which he's three. So that Father and Son are in fellowship. But Jesus is God. This verse,
30 seconds.
Oh, sorry. I wasn't even keeping track. I should have been patting myself there. So looking at the Greek, what we see is that Jesus is what God is, and he's in fellowship with God.